Sholem Aleikum, Assalamu Alaikum, Shalom Aleichem. It is me, Comrade Net Ben Yehoshua, the Cleric of Public Relations and co-founder of the Bundist Movement. I'm here with Donna Newman, fellow co-founder of the Bundist Movement and emissary of Solidarity.
Hi.
That's it. This is the only way that I could be pressured into letting this embarrassing video be uploaded.
I can't believe that you would say that, Comrade Net.
Why not? You get to hear me at my worst.
I can't believe that you would say this when you handled it so well.
I yell at the construction, constantly lose my train of thought. I end up talking to you, to Marvin, and to Uri at different points.
So what, Net? Don't be such a schmuck.
Schmuck?
Yes, you schmuck.
Oh, those are fighting words there.
Oh, Net, you are too sensitive sometimes. It's cute. You're like a dying cat with sad eyes that say, "Why me? Why must I go through life without a beer or a cheese sandwich?"
What are you talking about?
Kiss. The look on your face is priceless. There is a scowl on his face. We need to get a webcam. It would be great. Let's go ahead now.
Alright. We started... Yeah, I noticed. We just started watching My Mother Sold Me, Cambodia, where virginity is a commodity. Now, you see that right there, RT News on air live stream, 24/7 HD. Yeah, we're doing our own experimental live stream recording. And it is completely experimental. It's the invention of Uri Adia and Marvin Eliyahu. So we started watching this, and it's rather good. So far, so good. We are going to cut into it through this experimental live stream. And we'll see how it goes. We're probably going to end on what if the entire Middle East was like Israel. Trump administration can dream, as you can see on the RT channel. Again, this is experimental, and hopefully the construction in the back row will stop. It's going to make this kind of awkward. No, Uri, that's not necessary. No.
Nhưng mà bạn không đai, hay ôn không đai. Thế là bên phía cọ đai đai score Việt Nam ca lạnh. Trong bên đại khơi pha kia nâng một khổ xa cái nhang bài chắc đi dùng thôi. Nhưng mà là quý. Tại trong chui Việt cao đấng thương mấy.
A lot of people ask why or how it's happening. Cambodia suffered some lack of resources, needed some skill basing, and needed some capacity to ensure that they had the right people and the right methodologies and techniques to combat crimes against children. You've got poverty, you've got lack of education, you've got alcoholism, you've got drugs, so it's not one core reason.
Perhaps it's impossible to imagine how a mother can sell her daughter into prostitution. But for some families, there is a stark, tragic choice. Sell one child or face losing everything. T, Mick and Pick have long accepted that their childhoods are over. Now all they want is the chance to be normal young women. To have a home, a real career, a future. But can it ever be more than just a dream?
Alright, that was My Mother Sold Me, Cambodia, where virginity is a commodity. And we're going to bring you to, the U.S. trade war. U.S.-China U.S.-China trade war, Beijing wins first round. And this should be very interesting. I hope that you guys are enjoying this, and hopefully the construction will stop. Right now the construction's not on, but the door is open. Long story. But yeah, the U.S.-China trade war, Beijing wins the first round. On RT.
The Chinese ambassador to the United States has said that Beijing has no choice but to defend itself from a trade war it doesn't want, one started by Washington.
It's important to notice who started this trade war. We never want to have a trade war, but if somebody started a trade war against us, we have to respond and defend our own interests.
The remarks come amid heightened tensions over months of billions worth of tit-for-tat tariffs between the world's two largest economies. One of the reasons for the trade war is Trump's anger with China's trade surplus with the United States. But despite all the punitive measures, America's trade deficit with Beijing has now in fact reached a new record. Daniel Bushell picks up the story.
The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. Sun Tzu, 6th century BC, applied by his homeland today to a different war.
Trade war, protracted trade war.
Labeling of China as the enemy.
Trade war continues.
Game on here. A trade war between the United States and China is here. It's real.
China is accusing the White House of launching the largest trade war in history.
Trump slaps vicious restrictions on Beijing, yet its sales just grow to the biggest trade surplus with Washington ever. In other words, Beijing has never sold so much stuff to the States while buying so relatively little in return. America whacked tolls on China in January. Next month, Beijing only sells them more. Same after fresh US fees in July, August and September. Now panic after this month's record sales by Beijing to America. Is Trump's plan working, or is he just talking the talk?
China's market distortions and the way they deal cannot be tolerated. China has been attempting to interfere in our upcoming 2018 election. I've done a lot of business with China. China. China Sea. Through China. I've been talking about China for a long time.
Beijing also holds a nuclear option up the sleeve. It owns over $1 trillion of US debt. If it calls that cash in something, Washington has a problem. There are talks for a Xi-Trump summit next month, where a US way out the Chinese finger trap can be hammered out. Till then, who'd have thunk it? Trump would make China great again.
So what this means is that, of course, China is basically won the trade war in this first round, and it shows that, of course, the American consumers are the ones that are paying the highest prices for this, and it's not harmed China. Certainly, the U.S. has no position of strength going into these talks. What China has done is continue to emphasize its exports to the U.S. American importers are rushing very, very fast over the last 2 quarters to get as much product in as possible before the tariffs hit. And China is pursuing other trade relationships to continue to cause their economy to grow. So what this shows is that the U.S. has completely failed.
All right, so far the construction's not back on. Of course, the traffic is because of the lack of the door. But let me just try to gather my thoughts together. Why did this have to happen today? I don't know. But we're going to the crosstalk blowhorns, where they make the discussion of the internet purging that's been going on, and the murder of Khashoggi, and how this will possibly or possibly not affect American-Saudi relations. And that is a very important topic, because this gets into Donna Newman's theory about even the Saudis becoming eventually distanced from the United States of America. Although we should consider this, however, the first rift between the U.S. and the Saudi royals, not the end. Just like the flotilla incident was the first rift between Turkey and Israel, but it wasn't the end. Trump's Jerusalem decision to have the and the construction's back on. Okay. Maybe I can finish that thought later. Alright, let's go to the crosstalk bullhorns, alright? I can't believe the is this really gonna be... Do we know when this is gonna end? Alright, well, let's just cut into it then, alright? Okay, let's cut into it.
Hello and welcome to Crosstalk, where all things are considered. I'm Peter Lavelle. Tech tyranny, you too can be disappeared in broad daylight.
I would just like to say Alex Jones is not nearly as bad as David Duke or Glenn Beck. I really want to stress that really badly right now. Alex Jones is not as bad as David Duke or Glenn Beck. Seriously. If you think Alex Jones is worse than Glenn Beck, or if you think that Alex Jones is worse than David Duke, you have a serious, serious problem in the brain. I would like to state that. At least Alex Jones talked a lot about the reality behind the police state. Sometimes he fudged little facts and got things confused, but he at times was strikingly accurate when everyone else was too scared to speak about such subjects. I want to put that out there right now.
Hello and welcome to Crosstalk, where all things are considered. I'm Peter Lavelle. Tech tyranny, you too can be disappeared in broad daylight. Also, the fate of a Saudi journalist is testing Washington's relations with Riyadh. Is the Crown Prince's rule in doubt? And much, much more on this edition of Crosstalk. Cross-talking some real news. I'm joined by my guest here in Moscow, Glenn Deason. He is a professor at the Higher School of Economics and author of The Decay of Western Civilization and the Resurgence of Russia. We also have Alex Christoforou. He's the director and writer for theduran.com. And we have Dmitry Babich. He is a political analyst with Sputnik International. Well, all right, gentlemen, crosstalk rules in effect. That means you can jump in anytime you want, and I always appreciate it. The purge has come, long expected. What do you think of the extent of it, and is this the beginning? Because we had Alex Jones was the tipping point. Now they're rolling it out.
Balloon. Alex Jones was a trial balloon. Alex Jones himself said it, that they're going to come after everybody once they're done with me, and they wiped him off the internet map. And now they've come after anti-media. They went after the Free Thought Project. It's important to point out these are not just conservative sites. These are also progressive sites, and it's 2-3 weeks before the midterms. So
well,
there's no
okay,
coincidence
I'm glad
there.
you brought that up, because one could make the argument that Facebook is injecting itself into the political process here, because they're saying they're trying to protect the political process from these quote-unquote fringes, but they're the ones that are meddling.
It's also important to point out that it's not just Facebook. Twitter also suspended the account, so there's obvious collusion between the two companies. So, I mean, what you have here is Facebook, in my opinion, has put the final nail in their coffin. We can look at them now as a big company, but believe me, in a few years, Facebook will regret this decision.
Already millennials are leaving in droves here.
All right, so the other thing that this is getting into, other than the collaboration of big tech corporations silencing the independent voice, is the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, or at least the alleged murder, which is believed to be done by the Saudis. Some say the Saudi Crown Prince. That is also to be covered here on this episode of Crosstalk, which we have gathered this morning from the live stream. And I think that one of the things that I want to point out is, although I often found myself in disagreement with Alex Jones, I still find it highly suspicious, despite what our whether he realizes it or not, we consider him a big ally, as a lot of what we believe is third worldist opinion. You know, there's this guy, Jason, on the Maoist Rebel, who really doesn't care about the censorship of Alex Jones, and I understand his reasoning, but I really used to watch Alex Jones a lot, and I still maintain David Duke and Glenn Beck are both much worse. Alex Jones was just simply a little nutso, but a lot of what he said was true. If you could get past all the insane conspiracy theories and understand that that's what he did, he marketed conspiracy theories. But, anyway, we're going to go further with this right now.
Millennials are leaving in droves here. Glenn, what is the significance for you? Because it seems to me that there's an enormous amount of collusion going on here. And it's the mainstream media that is cheering this along because they want their monopoly back. They want to be able to push their competitors to the side because their ratings are way, way down. Their business model is failing. This is a big favor to the establishment.
Definitely, and I think, that's how it's developed as well. And I think, Alex was right to point out that this was largely, something that they will regret, because when this, purge of, alternative voices began, initially we saw that, these tech companies who now established themselves as this new Ministry of Truth, they essentially came after the foreign media first, so RT for one, where they start to manipulate the algorithms to get fewer hits, and then we saw that it began to attack internal enemies as well, because they have American society become quite polarized.
There is a schism between globalism and Americanism, which is why Russia is feared so much, because Russia is the only big capitalist competitor that is not on the side of globalism or Americanism. Russia has, after all, the freest press in the world.
American society become quite polarized, so of course the conservatives began to complain that these very left-leaning tech companies are now coming after them as well and censoring the conservatives. Now again, it continues, and I think now they're going after both left and right anti-establishment.
Facebook is an equal opportunity offender, huh? Dima, what's your take on this?
They are not going after both left and right. They are going after centrist, leftist, and sections of the right-wing fringe. And neoliberals need to do that in order to maintain their perception control. That's largely what neoliberalism is about, perception control. Neoliberal, neo-fascist, and neoconservative are not fascist, liberal, or conservative. It's the economic policy that maintains neo-feudalism and neo-globalism. The construction is making it difficult, everybody. Let me re-say all that. The neoliberal policies that are neoliberal, neoconservative, and neo-fascist, which are not fascist, conservative, or liberal. That's not a pro-fascist statement, everyone. I'm just saying that fascism is useful to boost up hyper types of corporate capitalism. So they're not going after the left or right, the left or the right. They're going after centrist, leftist, and sections, mind you, sections of the right-wing fringe. These tech companies are not left-leaning. These tech companies are not left-leaning. They are neoliberal, which is just as right-wing as neoconservative and neo-fascist. And by the way, neo-fascist is not fascist, while neo-Nazi is fascist. I'm very sorry about the construction that it just happens to be today. I'm not sure if we're ever going to do this live stream stuff again. Donna, take us to the next, please. Please, thank you.
Dima, what's your take on this?
Well, I think we said it a long time ago on this program. For many decades, humanity expected fascism to come from extreme left or from extreme right. It came from the center.
No, again, it came from neoliberals, and this paves the way for right-wing fringe uprisings, regardless of whether neoliberals intend for this or not. This newspeak for describing left-right paradigm is harmful. This just goes to show that neoliberal policies are important to high-tech imperialism. The marketing monopoly enterprises stand much to lose from the right-wing fringes that can't toe the talking point line. The center that is falsely called the left scares them, and the left wing scares them for very, very obvious reasons. You know, it doesn't take much to figure out why.
It came from the center, where it was least expected. And look at the reactions. I mean, let me quote Jason Bosler from the Free Thought Project, which had more than 3 million followers, gone now, right? He says that this is a pre-midterm purge. And I like that expression. Also, I just found...
but that's in the service... That is not in the service of democracy. It is not in the service of ideas. What it is to narrow the field, and where they have... Facebook is injecting itself actually picking winners.
Well, I just love this expression. It memory hold. Facebook memory hold a lot of interesting articles, a lot of interesting authors. It is becoming what people call a digital nanny state. People were complaining a nanny state for many decades. Well, if we had a nanny state that would guarantee you education, healthcare, no one would be against such a nanny state. But the modern ultra-liberal nanny state, it doesn't guarantee you anything economically, but it certainly watches out that you would not be influenced by politically incorrect ideas.
But Facebook and Twitter and others, they're determining what your value system should be.
Okay, well, everything now just said here, for the most part, especially how Peter signs it off with, well, it's not signed off, we've cut into this, where he says they determine your values. That's all spot on. There's nothing to object to there. That is all spot on.
You would not be influenced by politically incorrect ideas.
But Facebook and Twitter and others, they're determining what your value system should be. They are mandating it, and they are punishing people that don't toe the line. They are much more than a platform where you can place ideas. They're editors now. They're editors of social media, of the social media space.
When I hear about this, every time I hear about this, every single time I hear about this, I'm noticing that there's this debate going on, like, well, we just need more free press, which we do. That's true. However, you hear a lot of stuff about, well, you can't turn it into a public utility. That puts it in the power of the hands of the state. This is another reason why people need to understand what socialism would be, what it is, and how it has been. Because, like, the truth be told, forget about the private sector or the state sector. How about it being a utility for the public use of the community? That would be way more healthy. That would be the answer. Just some thoughts, because everybody knows where this is already going. Come on.
They are acting as publishers, so they should be defined as publishers, not platforms. They should not have the protection of platforms. They should be responsible for what content goes up. They should hire thousands of editors to monitor the content. They should be liable to any types of lawsuits for the content they publish. You can't have it both ways. Facebook and Twitter, in my mind, are finished. There's a lot of alternatives coming up now. Gab is crushing Twitter as far as growth. Twitter is losing users
yes, it is.
Month to month. If it wasn't for Donald Trump, Twitter would not be what it is today. Donald Trump is the one that's giving Twitter a lot of publicity.
One has to wonder if he has shares in the company. I wonder. I mean, this is a profound moment here in social media, because it seems to me that this is, when these things were first invented, and it was kind of left of center. Everyone has a level playing field. Everyone can participate. Everyone's ideas will be accepted at face value. That era is over.
Who says anything has to be over? The goofy truth about all of this is that the most likely thing happening is that the CIA wants to identify its rivals, and what Americanism perceives to be a threat to the actual New World Order, which is and has been nothing more, nothing less than Americanism itself. I don't think the concept of new ideas and everything like that has to be over. I do think there has to be a point very soon, though, where we clarify what is the truth. And everybody is just scared of certain things, such as the Jewish socialist voice, religious socialist voices, in general, Jewish socialist voices in particular. I think that that's actually the stuff we scare people the most. But they don't know where we're coming from, and hopefully we'll just win and not get destroyed with black bags over our heads.
And I don't think there's anything to continue it.
Well, that was the first argument when the internet came up in the 90s, that this would be the ultimate expression of democracy, so people could express themselves, share any ideas without any government control. So you have this huge power which was then drifting towards the individual, and at the same time you saw the state coming in as well, who wanted to harness this. So you see this with NSA. Yeah. China obviously has also had its some formidable efforts in terms of controlling the internet. And I think now in the center you see the tech corporations really having this huge power and coming essentially with their own agenda. And I wouldn't necessarily agree with what Dima said, that they're in the center, because they are politically very left, though. If you look at the executives at Google and...
But the interesting thing is that these platforms want to determine what the center is.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay? That's what I think is really very interesting here. And what it'll do, as Alex pointed out, people will go elsewhere, all right? And the interesting thing for me is that there's always been this talk about turning them into a utility, regulating it. But I think these powers, using Dima's term, in the center, they want to harness it for themselves.
Exactly.
Of course they want to harness it for themselves. Okay, the best way you can think about this is that when you think about the internet, think about radio when radio first came out. They wanted to control radio. Internet cannot really be compared to... Internet should not be compared to television. It should be compared to radio. You know, and another factor here is that this has a lot to do, and this has everything to do with capitalism versus socialism. Because the human spirit is not compatible with capitalism, and it's geared towards socialism. And that has everything to do with the monopolization of information today. Once you find out truth, you become angry with capitalism.
That's why you don't hear talk of anti-monopoly talk, because they want to capture it for themselves.
Well, when they use this word center, they use it to kind of calm people down. Okay, this is the mainstream, this is the center. We have been living with it for so many years, everything's fine. But they are censoring not only Trump's supporters, they're censoring some site called Punk Rock Libertarians on Facebook. Doesn't sound like Nazis, or, you know, doesn't sound like leftist extremists to me. And some statistics, 559 pages and 251 accounts removed. Are these all just, you know, extremists? Are these all people attracting readers with shocking political news? Well, the political news are shocking. And the difference with China is that in China, the mainstream press is not calling for war. In the United States and in the European Union, the mainstream press very often kind of switches itself into a war mode, and we have them touting the war against Iraq, the war against Libya, the war against Syria. Well, this is the big difference with China.
But it ties into, you know, that this is the outsourcing of censorship. You and I talked about this earlier with the Atlantic Council, is that Facebook, they just said, well, we'll have these fact checkers take care of it for us. First of all, they abrogate any kind of responsibility. Well, we were our advisors, you know, so and, you know, for the mainstream, the Atlantic Council has sterling credentials. I don't think they have sterling credentials around this table and for many of the, our viewers watching this program.
Right, that's a good assessment. I mean, I have no objections to that. That's a pretty good assessment.
Outsourcing censorship.
Yeah, and that's why at the end of the day, Facebook is now essentially a publisher, even though they claim to be a platform. Let's not forget, when they first started, they were saying they were a platform for communication, for ideas. They lied to everybody.
So they wouldn't be regulated.
Exactly, exactly. They lied to everyone. And let's not also forget, I've lived in Silicon Valley. These people that work in these companies, the Facebooks, the Twitters, the Googles, these guys are not progressive, they're not conservative, they're not libertarians. They despise all these groups. They are neoliberal elitists. These guys are the elite of the elite. They make huge salaries. They are the royalty. They are the tech royalty of the world, and everyone else, we're just a bunch of serfs.
And they want to keep that.
Exactly, they want to keep it.
Right.
I think the outsourcing hits it spot on, because in the United States, media freedom is, or at least has been, quite sacred. And but the whole argument is that these are private companies. They can choose who's going to be on their sites, and they can choose the rules for the platform. So but then obviously they link themselves to certain politics.
But what happens is that, I don't know if this was the original goal, but they are the public square now. I mean, they're much more than a platform.
I think what you mean is private square, or privatization of our lives, as in neo-feudalism. Should know that neo-feudalism and neo-colonialism are large components of today's imperialism. But, I mean, I don't have much of a disagreement with what is said per se. You know, it's logical. What is that sound? What are they doing now? What is that?
For the platform. So, but then obviously they link themselves to certain politics.
But what happens is that, I don't know if this was the original goal, but they are the public square now. I mean, they're much more than a platform. They are the public square where ideas are exchanged. And they are unilaterally, without giving anyone any recourse, is that you're out. Okay? No explanation.
Well, it is creating a lot of waves in the US, the fact that they are so brazen, these tech companies. So that's why very interesting on the right in the United States. You see traditional free marketeers, conservatives now arguing that, Facebook should become a utility, so essentially the state should absorb it because...
But that's not a good solution. That's not a good solution. It might even compound it, depending on who's in power.
Now, didn't I just say that they were going in that direction? The solution is not for the state or for privatization, but the public, a real public square, as in collective ownership democratically, of course, through the educational, and, we're working out the bugs in our view about how to bring about this direct democracy. But it should be known that you got to stop conflating first world statism with common ownership to use that your voice may matter, that it wouldn't under a, obviously it doesn't under a capitalist system. The construction is so annoying. I'm very sorry, everybody. We're gonna finish this up all the way through, but I don't think we're ever gonna do live streaming like this again because of stuff like this. I can't, some of this is very loud. I try to buffer the sound through this room, and it's just still not working. I don't know why this is. We are never going to live stream again. I don't know. You guys, seriously, we can't do this. Not like this anymore. All things must be pre-planned. Seriously. All things. Well, I know I want to talk, but still.
Okay. How you could use it.
But we do need some kind of a solution, because these tech companies, they will grow, and they will continue to grow in the future, as that's where the main geoeconomic power will come in the future, especially now as we're going into this new industrial revolution. So I think... we have to choose. What do we do? You have these huge corporations become more and more powerful. Are they going to be aligned with the state? If so, how? Do you have Chinese system where they control it, or do you have the corporate state of America, or do you let them run free and essentially challenge the government like the oligarchs in Russia in the 90s?
On this program, I don't think we have any solutions for that problem right yet. 20 seconds, Tim, before we go to break.
People have been talking about meddling during the last 2 years, I think. Well, I liked the quote from Nicholas Bernabe, the founder of the Anti-Media, that was also taken down. He said, okay, if we're talking about meddling, removing 800 politically oriented media for deletion, isn't that meddling in elections right before the November midterms? That is meddling.
And they determined who's in and out in that meddling.
All right, well, that was very interesting. And we are now going to go to the second part of this episode of Crosstalk, where I will continue to give commentary on everything that is said.
Okay, let me go to Glenn here. Let's shift gears to Saudi Arabia and the mysterious disappearance of a dissident Saudi journalist.
This gets into much of what Donna had predicted about the distance that could occur between America and Saudi Arabia. It's getting really loud here. I'm not sure. I think that's... What is that? Anyway, this has to do with the missing journalist Khashoggi, I think he's called, and what this is going to amount to in the geopolitical relations between the United States of America and Saudi Arabia. I don't agree with everything that is about to be said as we're streaming through this again. This is still on live on RT. It's very hard to concentrate with that out there like this. We are never doing the live feed again, okay? We are not doing this again. Ever. I'm losing my train of thought. Seriously. Just recap.
Okay, let me go to Glenn here. Let's shift gears to Saudi Arabia and the mysterious disappearance of a dissident Saudi journalist. This is a big story.
Yes, it definitely created it's become a very awkward component of the...
Awkward? You're always good for understatement.
Yeah, well...
It's his Norwegian blood, I think.
So, it appears that he was murdered, and of course this doesn't bode well for the relations between the United States and Saudi Arabia. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of strategic and financial interest in maintaining this partnership. So my best guess is that the Saudis will throw a lot of money at this, and we will eventually see it go away. But I guess, coming to the defense of the Americans, I would say that they are put in a difficult position because as they do have this strategic interest they have to pursue, and at the same time they have to harmonize this with what appears to be moral values or ideological consistency.
I always like that, that kind of turn of phrase where you have common geopolitical interests but not values.
Much of the official story concerning the events of 9/11 is tied into the Saudi royals. By the way, the mainstream media line is not the same thing as the official story. I hate it when 9/11 truthers claim that the official story says this or that the official story says that, when actually the mainstream corporatized media is only pushing a fictional narrative, rather disconnected from the official story. Fucking construction. I would like to say that I don't think that America is going to remain allies with the Saudi royals forever. You know, the royal Saudi families are imperialists who could easily do business with other imperialists, such as Britain, who they already have relations with. Donna Newman and myself both agree that the Saudi royal state, for its own security, will in time divest from America, leaving Israel as the only ally of America. You don't think so? Look at the trends. Look at the way it's going. I mean, everybody is looking at the facts and they're seeing Saudi Arabia involved, and Trump is a populist who promotes Islamophobia. Just think about this. Really think about this for a second. The Saudi royal family will, in time, divest from America. Or not, but I think that it will, and so does Donna Newman. I mean, really, think about it.
I think this is going to continue for a while here. We know that President of Turkey, Erdogan, is in some kind of joint investigation. Well, I tend to think this is a one-way negotiation. Erdogan is going to extract a lot from the Saudis because apparently it's the Turks that have all the forensic evidence, the communications, all this. As far as we know, it has not been released to the media, but that's a very powerful card they're playing.
Marvin, you're not listening to me. I don't hate the birds. I'm only saying I'm sure without the door you can hear all the sounds outside, including the birds. That's all. And make sure that you tell Uri that he knows that... Oh shit. Oh, yeah, we couldn't. Sorry. Yeah? Really? Okay, yes, Donna, thank you. Okay, you wrote this? Okay. On the subject of Turkey, we know that the only true geopolitical ally of Israel was Turkey for the longest period of time. However, with the flotilla incident, and now with Trump's U.S. Embassy decision, we see a shift away from the former geopolitical map. Saudi royalty is close to Americanism and has gotten even closer, which means Saudi royalty is getting closer to Zionism. The Qatars are now showing their first truly big split from Saudi royalty. With Khashoggi's murder, Saudi royalty is seeing a first rupture from Americanism, which will most likely blow over. Is this it? Okay. Until another rupture. However, instead of this destroying Saudi power, the royal families of the House of Saud are more likely to work with the UK, EU, and other imperialist players because globalism will most likely not surrender to Americanism, which is declining in its imperial hegemony. Donna, you just wrote all this? All of it, just now? Wow. Okay. Alright, so, yeah, I'm sorry everybody, this thing is on live, and, you know, once we're done with this, we're done with this. I'm not even sure if we're gonna be able to put this out. I don't even know if I'm gonna put this out. If this gets put out, it's because people will petition that we put this out, which has to be decided between myself and Donna Newman. The construction, by the way, you're hearing, everybody, is due to the fact that this office building is currently without a real front door, and we are having it replaced right now, and we are having repairs also right now. To make it even worse, there is construction going outside, and this is all happening while you're hearing truck shipments coming in today, while we decided to do this stream. This stream is a cut to comment, a program made by Marvin and Uri, by the way. They do great work for us here, and this is the first and last time we were going to use it. And if you guys hear this on YouTube, it's because we're petitioned and me and Donna don't object to putting it out. Although, if this gets put out, understand that it was put out very much against my will. Anyway, is that it, everybody? I mean, there's nothing, she didn't write anything else. No. Alright, so I'm going to put my own thoughts into this now before we cut back into crosstalk. I think we're going to see massive upheavals, and I think this is going to go back and forth, but I ultimately agree with Donna Newman on the matter that the Saudi royal families are going to disconnect eventually from Americanism, and I don't think that that's going to destroy the Saudis, because the Saudis just have too much oil, and I think that it will go with other imperialist fractions that make up globalism. And by the way, the term globalism is correct because of the term globalization. Yeah, there could be more to say about that, but we really just need to get back to what we were doing. We're going back to the feed, to crosstalk.
I think the Crown Prince has to be very worried, mostly about his reputation.
Yeah, and I think the Turks shared that information with the U.S. Judging by Trump's 60-minute interview, Trump also knows this is a huge story. Erdogan is going to get a lot of leverage over Saudi Arabia. He's going to get a lot of money from them. The U.S. is going to sell a boatload of arms to Saudi Arabia. At the end of the day, I agree with you. They are going to reconcile. But MBS, most likely, as we were talking before the program, may be on his way out. Good riddance. The guy was a sociopath.
Sociopath. Okay, again, this is the first rupture. That's all that needs to be seen. It is possible that the Crown Royal Prince will be, removed, but not likely. It's possible. It's just not really likely. This is only a first rupture. These things take a while. Just like the flotilla was the first rupture for Turkey, having problems with Israel. The real nails in the coffin has to do with the U.S. Embassy being moved to Jerusalem. showing that the Oslo Accords was always a land grab con, one-sided on the side of Israel and never Palestine.
He has been doing this for the better part of a year. He's been bombing Yemen. He's been taking other Saudi oligarchs and billionaires, locking them in hotel rooms, torturing them. And was it not 3 or 4 months ago, Peter, that MSNBC, Washington Post, New York Times, CNN were hailing him as what? The reformer prince, the liberal prince, who's letting women go to movie theaters and letting them drive, and he's the savior of Saudi Arabia. And it took, you said it best before the program, it took the murder, most likely the murder of this journalist. And the only reason it's opening up the eyes is because he was working for the Washington Post. It took this murder for everyone to open up their eyes.
It's one of their own here. But John Brennan came out and I'm glad you pointed out the article to me, so I won't be a spoiler. Go right ahead, Dima.
Well, John Brennan published an article in the Washington Post. Isn't he a brave man, you know? He published the article headlined, "The U.S. should never turn a blind eye to this sort of inhumanity."
Can you read the last sentence here? I have it here. I'll read it here.
You can read it.
The message would be clear. Here we go. The United States will never turn a blind eye to such inhumane behavior, even when carried out by friends, because this is a nation that remains faithful to its values.
Absolutely.
That was John Brennan. He was, what, the Darth Vader of droning? Dima.
Well, John Brennan, as he admits in his article, has worked in Saudi Arabia for 5 years with the same regime that destroyed Mr. Khashoggi. And he basically says that, according to my information, it couldn't be done without the prince knowing it. End of quote. Well, for whom better than Brennan to know such things? He got permission from President Obama every night for killing hundreds of people by drone attacks.
You see, that I appreciate. That's a breath of fresh air for that to be mentioned. Nobody really gets on to what Obama did to pave the way for much of what Trump is doing now. Just as, you know, Bush paved the way for Obama, Obama paved the way for Trump. I'm so glad that that was mentioned. Highly appreciated. This is actually why we like crosstalk. This is why.
Suddenly we have this eye-opening moment from Mr. Brennan. He says, he writes in his article, "We saw the well-publicized detention of more than 100 princes, senior technocrats and businessmen in the Ritz-Carlton Hotel. Well, I read in the New York Times that it was needed for reform. There was Thomas Friedman who came in person to talk to Mohammed bin Salman.
He was seduced by the crown prince.
He was seduced. He said he was worn out by his reform agenda that he has been listening to during the whole night. You know, these are real.
It was probably one of the most expensive PR campaigns ever done, okay, in the history of PR.
And then also, just a moment, Mr. Brennan also noticed that MBS ordered the arrest of activists, some of whom were actually women. He allowed the women to drive, and we thought it could excuse him for anything. He ordered some of them arrested. Well, this is the point about the ultra-liberals. They make privileged groups, but if a member of that privileged group, a handicapped person, a woman, or a representative of the sexual minority is against them, then you can crack down on that person.
It might need to be said that this is an issue of misogyny, not really patriarchy. A lot of people look at the Saudi royal system and say it's patriarchy, but that's not actually the case. In patriarchy, women have rights. They have different rights than men, but they have rights nonetheless. I mean, a lot of people like to bash the Jewish ultra-Orthodox, but what people don't know is a lot of the rules that have manifested the way because of the way the ultra-Orthodox felt their inversion on them due to the Enlightenment movement. Of course, they would have just called themselves Orthodox, but that gets into a whole history of the various Jewish tendencies. And, you know, Dr. Weisfeld has held the position that Jewish Reform, Jewish Conservative, Jewish Reconstructionist, that's basically based on the Protestant movements within the Western Church, and that would be correct. However, this is kind of off track. The way you have to understand the Saudi royals is not through the lens of theocratic Islam, because that would be so inaccurate. You have to understand it as a technocratic, pro-austerity misogynist regime. A royalty, which by the way is forbidden in Islam. Another thing that should be mentioned in the Jewish theocratic kingdoms of Israel, Judah, and such, the kings were not monarchs. They would have in fact been more like the sultans that you would have seen in the early Islamic period before the Ottomans, which, by the way, that's not a strike against the Ottomans. We're going to have to start putting out where we stand with a lot of this. I'm seeing this more and more now, and why we prefer direct democracy over anything else, and why we're looking at things in a, well, I'm digressing like badly, but the point being is that these are just the thoughts that come when, really? Alright, we're just going to go to the next part.
Well, John Brennan, as he admits in his article, has worked in Saudi Arabia for 5 years with the same regime that destroyed Mr. Khashoggi. And he basically says that, according to my information, it couldn't be done without the prince knowing it. End of quote. Well, for whom better than Brennan to know such things? He got permission from President Obama every night for killing hundreds of people by drone attacks. And suddenly we have this eye-opening moment from Mr. Brennan. He says, he writes in his article, "We saw the well-publicized detention of more than 100 princes, senior technocrats and businessmen in the Ritz-Carlton Hotel." Well, I read in the New York Times that it was needed for reform. There was Thomas Friedman who came in person to talk to Mohammed bin Salman.
He was
how
seduced
nice it
by
was.
the crown prince.
He was seduced. He said he was worn out by his reform agenda that he has been listening to during the whole night. You know, these are real.
It was probably one of the most expensive PR campaigns ever done, okay, in the history of PR.
And then also, just a moment, Mr. Brennan also noticed that MBS ordered the arrest of activists, some of whom were actually women. He allowed the women to drive, and we thought it could excuse him for anything. He ordered some of them arrested. Well, this is the point about the ultra-liberals. They make privileged groups, but if a member of that privileged group, a handicapped person, a woman, or a representative of the sexual minority is against them, then you can crack down on that person more than on anyone else. If he is so concerned, Mr. Brennan, about women in detention, why doesn't he remind us of Maria Butina, who is just sitting there, a woman activist who drove and who liked to speak to the media? She is now in detention in the United States. So,
this journalist, Jamal Khashoggi, he's put Donald Trump, his fate, whatever it is, has put Donald Trump in a very uncomfortable position because, of course, we can't. He says the U.S. can't stand for this, but as we've all agreed here, there's a lot of money at stake right here. Is it possible? And I think that Alex has already alluded to it. The West may be looking for a different partner in Saudi Arabia.
Well, that could be it.
Because it's not, we have to remind our viewers, it's not a country, it's a family, okay? And there are other members of the family, okay?
Yeah, without the Saudis ruling it, it would just be Arabia.
Hence the constant referencing to the Saudi royals that we name as such, as opposed to referring to Arabia, the actual country. Now, of course, this is still possible that the prince shall be removed from his status. But, even though it's possible that this prince will be removed from the status, it's just unlikely. But keep in mind that this is now officially the first rupture between America and the Saudi royals. The first. There will probably be others, but this one is a first rupture.
Because it's not, we have to remind our viewers, it's not a country, it's a family, okay? And there are other members of the family, okay?
Yeah, without the Saudis ruling it, it would just be Arabia. So yes, it is a family enterprise. But I think that Trump put himself a little bit in a difficult position because during the whole campaign he pointed out that the Saudis were the main sponsor of terrorism, and he would not bow to the Saudis unlike his predecessor. And
then he had to flip.
Yeah, well, he did recognize the strategic interest and also the commercial interest in maintaining good relations with the Saudis. So he went over there and paid his tribute like any other American president. And I think now he's put in a difficult position. He might suspect this being a domestic issue, because obviously people like Brennan would not have come out against Obama in this kind of way. So, he called Trump treasonous in the past for meeting with Putin. So, again, I think that it also reflects how American politics have polarized. So, if the opposition can really put Trump in a bad light, I think they're likely to jeopardize the relationship with Saudi Arabia by calling him out and essentially daring him to challenge this partnership.
It's all part of, by any means necessary. Alex, I think what's really interesting is that one of the things, the mantras that you hear about Middle East politics is Iran is the chief supporter of terrorism in the world.
Even though actually Iran is probably one of the most important beacons of stability, safety, and liberty in the entire Middle East. I mean, just keeping this real. What the hell? Really?
I think what's really interesting is that one of the things, the mantras that you hear about Middle East politics is Iran is the chief supporter of terrorism in the world, okay? But you have, if in case, in this case, Khashoggi was killed by Saudi intelligence personnel in a foreign country, in a consulate, that is nothing less than an act of state terrorism. So it's kind of like that pot calling the kettle black here.
Yeah, and when we do find the truth behind all of this, and like we said, we pretty much know what I think most people are hinting at what happened. The Saudis, the family, will survive. They will throw MBS under the bus in order to survive, because at the end of the day, the royal family are survivors. So I think MBS's days are numbered. I think Trump was hurt by what happened. Let's not forget that Jared Kushner spoke to MBS. They said they spoke almost a whole night together, and they were discussing policy and stuff. So, I mean, all of Trump's immediate family also got burned really bad. You could tell that Trump did not like it, and you don't cross Trump. I think at the end of the day, Trump will take action if and when they decide to publish or to come out with the truth of what happened.
Again, possible, but just really, really unlikely. This reminds me, I was trying to convey this on our big documentary, Jewish Bundist Diaspora Movement, in one of the two areas where I go off and rant. But, the Alex Jones crowd, they always said, well, we don't have real capitalism, we have corporatism, even though corporatism is actually a type of classical fascism. But the way that they justify this is they say the state fused with the corporation, that's not capitalism, that's corporatism. Except that Donald Trump is the CEO. But at the end of the day, this is not like anything Trump has ever done. Trump can't deal with everything. I mean, you can't cross Trump, but you really can't cross the Saudi royals. I mean, America trumps, go figure, trumps the Saudi royals technically. However, the Saudi royals are strategically needed, and they have more friends than just simply America. So, could the prince be out? Yeah, it's just unlikely. It's possible, but unlikely.
Because the interesting thing is stressing the fact that it is a royal family. Sanctioning the crown prince is sanctioning the entire family. That's what makes it complicated.
Well, let me remind our viewers who was the main enemy of President Erdogan and Mohammed bin Salman. The president of Syria, Bashar al-Assad. So tell me about your enemies and I will tell you who you are. Maybe if Mr. Assad has such terrible enemies, the people who are able to commit a murder and then hide it, maybe he's not so bad after all. That's what we have been told by the Western media for so many years. And again, I think the Western media now will try to sell us the story that only Trump supported the Saudi family. It all started under him. John Brennan is already writing it in his article. Total absence of U.S. moral leadership on the global stage now. Well, let me remind our viewers that it was Obama who supported Mohammed bin Salman's intervention in Yemen, which Mr. Brennan is now calling that disastrous foray into Yemen, end of quote. Brennan was in power when the foray into Yemen started. Obviously, it started with his full support.
It's very interesting.
In 2015.
It's very interesting, Alex, because Glenn was absolutely right to bring in the domestic politics in the U.S. about this. Is that, and as Dima just said here, I guess history started 2 years ago because everybody else has amnesia.
Huh. You know, I very much remember when George W. Bush was the President of the United States of America. Everybody would go on and on about it can't get worse than Bush. Then we had Barack Obama and the war acceleration, the NDAA, and everybody was like, it can't get worse than Barack Obama. To which my reply was always, actually, whoever comes after Barack Obama by principle has to be worse than him. And now we have Donald Trump, and everybody's saying the worst president ever. You know, it can't be any worse than Donald Trump. To which my reply is, it has to be worse than Trump. Trump is a very crucial part of this peeling off the mask that the United States of America is doing. And yet, nobody thinks about that. There's a strange, very euphoric faith, and I do mean like devout faith, in the electoral process of the United States of America, which is completely racist. It is racist to believe in the United States of America because it is built on destroying the natives who were here first. It's incredible to me. It's absolutely incredible. I don't know how people go for this, but you know, I really appreciate crosstalk for this reason. It blows my mind, the historical collective amnesia, the collective historical amnesia of the American people. But not really. It's all about trying to tell, you know, we are good, we're not at fault, it's government. When really it's Americans are an occupying force on this soil, and it's wrong, and it should stop.
Glenn was absolutely right to bring in the domestic politics in the U.S. about this. Is that, and as Dima just said here, I guess history started 2 years ago because everybody else has amnesia about what happened beforehand. I mean, remember, we've stressed on this program over and over again. I've always talked about the envelope that Trump has in his pocket, and he checks everything off for his re-election. He inherited all of this, okay? It was not of his doing. I'm not defending Donald Trump. I think his relationship, his enhanced relationship with Saudi Arabia is toxic to the core.
Saudi relations with U.S. presidents go back at least as far as George W. Bush. You know, the Bushes and the Bin Ladens, has anybody forgotten about that as well? And of course, Trump's relationship with the Saudi prince is toxic to the core. Of course, one can see where that relationship is, largely in misogyny, maybe? Am I the only one that picks up on that? I'll tell you something, I can smell a misogynist a mile away. Really.
And it's coming back to haunt him.
It was the first country he went to.
First country.
Let's not forget that. So Trump does have some responsibility there, but I think he will take action. As far as Brennan goes, is it's not the same Brennan that was trying to overthrow and dethrone Trump. Is it's not the same Brennan that started Ukraine and the coup. Is it's not the same Brennan that started Syria. Is it's not the same Brennan that
started Russia. And killed
this Brennan
and killed thousands of people in Yemen by drones.
You know, it's amazing Russia keeps getting thrown into the mix in the political discourse. You know, Hillary won the popular vote. Of course, she stole it from Bernie Sanders, and that's been kind of proven. But she won the popular vote, and then Trump won through the Electoral College, which, by the way, cannot be hacked. So, therefore, there is no Russian influence onto Trump's presidency, unless they wanted Hillary Clinton to win, which is not possible. I think I've said that before somewhere, maybe. But, you know, it's just... This is all just hilarious. The way that this stuff is... You know, you gotta love crosstalk, man. You really do.
Let me remind you that Yemen, exactly, Yemen was the first victim of the drone campaign, and now Brennan is criticizing Mohammed bin Salman for this senseless foray into Yemen. But also, I think Mohammed bin Salman has given us a hint at who may succeed. He has nothing but praise in his article for Mohammed bin Nayef, the former head of the Saudi intelligence, who was basically removed by Mohammed bin Salman recently. He says that this person was deposed by the intolerant and vindictive crown prince, end of quote. Well, that reminds me of...
So we have a retired CIA head that's involved in another regime change. Does this guy ever retire? Okay. All right, gentlemen, that's all the time we have here. Many thanks to my guests here in Moscow, and thanks to our viewers for watching us here at RT. See you next time, and remember, crosstalk rules.
All right, well, that was crosstalk on this live stream experiment, which I regret any viewers that I'm pretty sure we're not going to do again. Because, as everybody can hear in the background, it can be unpredictable what happens when you do something like this live. Maybe this won't be the last time. It's just, I don't feel comfortable with this. But, it was good, and as has been explained, this isn't exactly on sequence, the way that we're cutting into this. But the live, goes on repeat, sort of, and we're just cutting into it, and as we have it on record, we can even go back to previous moments if we want to at any point. It's pretty advanced what Marvin Eliyahu and Uri Adia have invented. But the next thing that we're going to bring you to is deadline for jihadists to leave Idlib buffer zones passes. What's next? It's also here on today on October 15th, 2018. Oh, it's been a great, interesting experience, you know. And, I mean, this is a pretty cool invention. I don't know if it's necessarily unique, but it's good for our software stuff, but I'm just not comfortable with using it anymore. But I look forward to seeing what else we can do, and maybe we'll do it again. I just don't want to do this anytime soon again. This is very difficult, especially with the noise that I'm pretty sure is being picked up by the recording. Yeah. So anyway, this next part is what's it? Yeah. Okay. Let me see that. Deadline for jihadists to leave Idlib buffer zones passes. What's next? Good morning, everybody. We're dealing with construction in the background. Ha! Yay!
A deadline for terror groups to pull out of a buffer zone around Syria's last rebel-held stronghold has passed, with jihadist fighters staying put. For more details now, we're joined in the studio by Igor Zhdanov. Igor, with this deadline now gone, what are the chances then of these jihadists moving?
Well, actually, this is the biggest intrigue about this whole deal, because today is the second deadline, and today was the day when all rebel factions who are in the northern province of Idlib, today they were supposed to make the biggest concessions of all. They were supposed to withdraw troops from the 20-kilometer or so buffer zone in the province. Now, one thing to understand about Idlib, it is a mess in a sense that there are so many groups that are controlling various pockets of the province, and it is indeed one hell of a task to control and to see through their withdrawal, their compliance with the deal. What's not making things easier is because, for example, the Al-Nusra Front, the most formidable force in the Syrian province, hours before the deadline, here's what they had to say.
We have not abandoned our choice of jihad and fighting towards implementing our blessed revolution.
announced the deal publicly like a couple of other groups, more radical groups, have done. But when you look at their statement, it does indeed look that they are ready to continue the fighting and that they are willing to keep on fighting the Assad army. And so it doesn't really look like compliance with the deal.
Now, this deadline was only one of the things, wasn't it, agreed on by Turkey and Russia. What were the other key points?
Well, another key point was for rebels, for all the factions in Idlib, to withdraw heavy arms from the buffer zone. This was like a first step. It was supposed to happen on the 10th, so 5 days ago. And largely, from what we've seen so far, we haven't seen too many reports of violations of that. So largely, even despite groups denouncing the deal, so far so good. It seems that they're complying. But one thing is to withdraw heavy weapons, and another thing is to withdraw your own fighters, essentially moving front lines closer to what they see as their home, as their last stronghold. And for Turkey, it is de facto a guarantor of the guarantor of the rebels complying with the deal. It is, again, a very difficult task, because not only there is a lot of groups to control, to see them complying with the deal, but also sometimes groups say one thing and then do another. But so far, Russia has been saying that, well, Turkey is doing its best to see the deal succeed.
The agreements are being fulfilled, with our Turkish partners having the main role. They're actively fighting to get all groups to cooperate.
So ultimately today and the next following days will be key to understanding if the deal is on the way to being successful, or whether the groups, all those various factions in Idlib, whether they will continue fighting.
OK, Igor, thanks for the update. That was Igor Zhdanov there.
All right, now we are at the last video that we will give you on the live stream. And yeah, we have not been commenting on anything except the blowhorns, which was, you know, from crosstalk. When's the door gonna get back on? Right, so the only thing we provided commentary for here is crosstalk, and that was not the plan initially, but I guess I didn't understand that there was going to be all the construction and that we wouldn't have a door, so even when we're in between construction and the construction's just not on anymore, the traffic is still on, because all the noise that is not on inside a building is on when there's no door. And sometimes this door in this room is not enough to buffer the sound. Well, this is going to be the final video. It's what if the entire Middle East was like Israel? What if the entire Middle East was like Israel? Trump can dream. And I really don't want this. I don't want this published, guys. I really don't. If you all want it published, you will have to ask me and Donna, but I may not concede to it. I may pressure her just not to let this video come out. I know that you guys are amused, and I'm glad you're amused. Does anybody think about how Dr. Weisfeld's going to consider me unprofessional if this stuff keeps happening? That's not very funny. All right, let's go.
Apparently the Trump administration would have the whole Middle East be just like Israel if they had their way.
Israel is everything we want the entire Middle East to look like going forward. It is democratic and prosperous. It desires peace. And it is a home to a free press and a thriving free market economy.
So let's just take a moment and picture that. The entire Middle East would look at Donald Trump through the same eyes as Benjamin Netanyahu. Everyone in the region would hate Iran with the same fiery passion.
Threat posed by Iran, whose chief exports are violence, bloodshed, and chaos.
Iran lied. Iran's path to the bomb. Iran's aggression. The danger that Iran poses. Iran should not be rewarded for its aggression in the region.
And what would countries do to those they don't see eye to eye with? Follow the Israeli example and throw up a fence.
In our neighborhood, we need to protect ourselves from wild beasts. At the end of the day, as I see it, there will be a fence like this one surrounding Israel in its entirety.
Now, in that scenario, all of Israel's neighbors would likely be blocking them in. And of course, every country in the Middle East would be broken down into pro and anti-government, building barriers. And Israel has shown us exactly how those rebelling would be treated. Let's not forget about the lovely nuclear stockpile Israel is believed to have. The region would be filled with nukes. Not that they'd ever admit to having such weapons. Right, Bibi?
A yes-no question for you. Does Israel have nuclear capabilities and nuclear weapons? Yes or no?
We've always said that we won't be the first to introduce it, so we haven't introduced it.
Is all of that what the Secretary of State had in mind? Let's hope not.
You really have to see this in the context of American domestic politics and not really in Middle Eastern politics. Certainly for Israeli Jews, Israel is a very successful country. It's often referred to here in the United States as startup nation. What kind of reception does it have in the Middle East? Terrible. Israel is very unpopular for the way that it has been pushing aside the Palestinians and oppressing the Palestinians. Netanyahu and Trump have found a brotherhood in their policies towards the Palestinians and towards the Saudis and towards Iran. They've really aligned themselves very closely, and that's what you were hearing at the Ginza speech by Pompeo.
All right, well, that about does it then. That was the experimental live stream. I don't see what the point will be to make further edits, because, you know, I've already explained how it works. And further edits to it in any way would just simply mean that we were going to go through with it. We have the slideshow ready, the two basic pictures. I don't think that this is going to go up on YouTube, but if it does, I sure hope it provides some type of entertainment value. And I hope that the commentary that I gave to Crosstalk was enough. I'm not going to give commentary to the others. I didn't give commentary to the others, and we're not going to redo all this. By the time the live stream is... by the time we would get back into it, it would be a different set of videos anyway. So... oh boy. Yeah, you can everybody hear that? Really, man? Well, so we can do more with Donna Newman now that she has purchased a new headset. Me and her were sharing the headset. The headset would be brought back over to my primary place of residence, and I'd bring it back over to the office. We had actually 7 headsets at one point, but there's been a lot of drama that I don't care to get into. So, me and her can now correspond, because she will speak in her room in the office, and I will speak in my room in the office, and we can correspond that way. And that's important that we are in 2 different rooms, otherwise you're just going to hear an echo. So that's it. Our one and only attempt at the live stream. This was the only way we could get Donna to speak on our channel. So please like the video. I don't quite remember the cut-through process in the live stream. This was back in October 15th of last year, 2018. I hope everyone is looking forward to our upcoming trilogy against white supremacy, which will also be featuring Donna Newman.